This week we're talking about more Linux mobile hardware. We're talking about Alma Linux and their certification program. It's time for the 6.11 kernel to release and 6.12 to start getting worked on, and a lot more. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is the Untitled Linux Show, episode 169, recorded Saturday, September 14th. Not good, but it's a reason. Hey folks, it is Saturday, and you know what that means. It's time to get geeky with Linux and open source and all kinds of good stuff. We've got the regular crew here today. We've got Rob, we've got Ken, we've got Jeff, and we've got some stories to talk about. This weekend we think is going to be a kernel weekend, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But first, Rob is trying to stir up some trouble in my marriage by making me spend more money. And I think we've decided that he's not going to succeed this time. But give us the pitch, Rob. What's this new Linux gizmo that you're trying to get people to pay for?
Well, before we get started on that, I want to first make a correction on the furry phone that I talked about last week.
Uh-huh.
Jonathan, you were correct. Your guess was correct that I can't read. The phone is pronounced Fury phone, because the folks over at Fury Labs let me know that that is the correct pronunciation on Mastodon this week. I think it was today or yesterday they messaged me once they saw the little clip. So it is...
It's a failed on phonics.
Yeah, it is Fury, yeah. like Furious, because I suppose maybe because they're furious that there hasn't been a good Linux phone made until now.
You're going to feel a lot better if you buy one telling people that you have a Fury phone. It rolls off the tongue easier.
Yeah. I don't know. I struggle to say the word Fury. It's just weird to me. I think I see that U and I say Fury, and it's just, I don't know how.
Just think Furious.
Yeah, Furious is not too bad, but Fury. It's like, is it fear E?
Furious.
Is it like fear E or Fury? Do I need to put a little curve in that?
Fury.
It's like the old car, Plymouth Fury.
Yeah, Fury is kind of a weird Fury. I don't know. But how about, if there's no other words on that, let's talk about something else Jonathan's wife might hate me for. And that is the new Linux tablet from Deep Computing. Sure, there are other Linux tablets out there, the Pine Tab, I don't know, there's another one that maybe made it like a couple months before they ended it, and who knows, but not many really. This one, though, has something a little more special about it than at least any other tablet I've seen so far. And if you remember our past stories about Deep Computing, maybe you've guessed already, but this tablet runs on RISC-V and runs Ubuntu out of the box. So the SoC, system on a chip, is the same chipset the RISC-V Ubuntu laptop uses that we have previously talked about. This tablet comes with a 10.1-inch 1920 by 1200 IPS 10-point touch display, which is the part that Jonathan kind of griped about pre-show because he likes them to be small or something. Memory comes in 4 gig, 8 gig, or 16 gig. Has 16 gigabit eMMC storage, or if you have the 16 gigabits of RAM model, you can optionally get 128 gigabit eMMC. It's available. Has a 6,000 milliamp battery. I don't know what kind of battery life that is. Has front and rear cameras, a USB Type-C 3.0 port with DisplayPort, and they had the courage, again, to add a 3.5 millimeter audio jack. And all of this, really, I mentioned in the past that I bought a Surface Pro 3 to put Linux on, and it was used, and I paid $125 for it. All this is only $149 US plus shipping. Pre-ordering is available right now, and they're expecting to ship in September. So this has all the things that we're interested in. RISC-V, I mean, we have that RISC-V board that we kind of struggled and played and or maybe didn't do anything with. But this has Ubuntu already on that RISC-V board. And a tablet. It supports a mouse and a keyboard. It doesn't come with one. It'd be nice if they had like a nice little keyboard cover available, but maybe something else will fit it. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's an interesting little device. The comment I made before the show is I've already got a 10-inch tablet, but a 7-inch would be useful. I have found with a 7-inch it'll fit on the inside pocket of a suit coat, and so those are pretty useful just for that.
Yeah, but it's RISC-V.
It is RISC-V.
And think how cool you'd be whipping that out of your inside pocket during a Dungeons and Dragons game.
That's why it needs to be a 7-inch.
Or maybe a game of Risk.
There you go. I don't play any games with people in person though. They're all over the internet these days.
Well, as long as you have video on, you can be. They won't even know if it really came from your pocket then.
Yeah. So Keith S512 says, "Oh no, this will be so slow. It'll be slower than a Kindle Fire tablet. You'll just end up throwing it across the room." And I think that's fair. Like these RISC-V chips are not super performant yet. With the Vision 5, I know the comment I made was it is just barely good enough to do what you want, which in this case is compile and test software for. We're still kind of in the bootstrapping stage for RISC-V for these kind of devices. But I mean, it's cool. Like it's got the cool factor to have a RISC-V tablet and a tablet that's designed for running like this sort of touchscreen Linux stuff on. So
well, and realistically, something like this is probably more of people surfing YouTube and TikTok and just kind of basic consumption.
And that's all they do. Maybe just for reading an ebook.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of uses that I could see that just really don't need much power behind them.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen some of these low-power devices really struggle with things like scrolling through a big PDF or maybe a big ebook in that case, or playing, full HD YouTube videos. I would see this as possibly having some of the same problems. And then the other thing is like the touchscreen Ubuntu experience for this is maybe not necessarily the best yet.
Well, on the article, they did say if you're not an Ubuntu fan, the 16 gigabit model, I think later on in the future, will support the open source Android.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, but I seriously, I see this as more of a development platform at this point.
And it does match the RISC-V laptop. So if anything you do for one's going to work on the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot cheaper than the Juno Tab 3.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I still see RISC very much in this sort of a form factor as being excellent for development for RISC. But like as a general consumer device, I'm just not sure that it's there yet.
Well,
but I would love to be wrong.
We'll find out when you give us your review of it.
Will we find out, Rob? Did you? Are you buying one?
Oh, I may actually. This might be in the price range. This might be in the price range where I can just throw something at it and see what happens.
Yeah, I've done that too many times here recently, and I'm sort of my wallet is a little light of the funds for that sort of thing. You don't want a light
wallet going into the holiday season.
No.
It's also a pre-order. If it was an order, I probably would have, but to
be able to push the button and get it like 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah, I don't want to push the button and wait a month.
Amazon's Prime shipping has just ruined us all. All right, let's talk about Alma Linux, one of our favorite enterprise distros. Ken, what's new there?
Well, according to an article by Christine Hall for Phosphorus, Alma Linux announced this week that not only do they have a newly formed certification special interest group, but that the new SIG has already put together a hardware certification program to certify that Alma Linux works as it should on specific hardware. The hardware certification program is a feather in Alma Linux's cap, as it makes the distro the first Red Hat Enterprise Linux clone to offer hardware certification. which has long been available to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. This will be a big deal for server makers since accreditation is important to potential enterprise customers who often run the same operating system across numerous servers. Jonathan Wright, as the Alma Linux infrastructure lead and the new SIG's first chairperson, wrote, "This SIG was born out of a desire to prove that Alma Linux works in all places that our community needs it to. The members already helping are from all over the world and have gotten engagement from some of the most respected hardware providers in the world. Our most active engagement has been with Supermicro, and we are so grateful to them for helping us improve and expand the hardware certification program. Supermicro has already certified its 2U rack-mounted servers through this new program. The hardware certification process takes advantage of an open-source certification toolkit developed by the Alma Linux OS Foundation, which borrows from various open-source hardware and software testing projects and tools. It is available on the Alma Linux certification GitHub repo. Jonathan Wright also wrote, "We'll be working on spinning up a software certification program over the coming months to provide software validation and certification that our users can trust." The SIG is also interested in finding folks interested in working with it. If that's you, just join the SIG at any of its meetings or in the chat room. You can find a link to the Alma Linux blog post in Christine's article. The blog post also has links to the GitHub repo as well as to the meeting minutes and the chat room that I was talking about.
This is pretty interesting. I wonder if Alma Linux is charging anything for this certification, because there is some effort it takes to do that. I'm just curious if they're making any money from this, if this is a way that they're making a little bit of income. But this is useful. Like, I have built a couple of servers. Now, it's been years ago since this was a thing, but like, I've built a couple of servers and thought, oh yeah, surely Linux will run on there, no problem. And then you get it and you find out that like one of the chipsets inside is some weird NVIDIA thing, and you have non-working USB ports. Like, really?
Why would you have problems with NVIDIA chips?
There are some NVIDIA, was it the North Bridge or the South Bridge chips?
This was way back in the day.
This was when we actually had North Bridge and South Bridge.
Yeah,
that's been a few. But those NVIDIA chips just never ever got supported, and so your USB support on them was just it might work. And there are some things like that in Linux. So the fact that this, they look at it and they go, okay, all these things are actually going to work when you install them on Linux. Like, that's pretty valuable.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think they made them back, for about one generation, maybe two, and then decided, we're getting out of the chipset business.
But getting back to your original question on whether or not this may be a way to make money, it could be if companies contract with Alma Linux to do the hardware certification. It also gives companies, with them doing it open source, the opportunity to do self-certification.
So there's a hardware certification suite that they can run. Oh, interesting. That might even be useful for end users. Like, if you build your own computer, you might want to run this before you do a full install with, and all your setup, just to make sure that there's not anything broken that you didn't realize.
In general, that tool might be useful for non-Alma users, just because if Alma runs on it, probably most any other, at least mainstream one's going to work too. So
then most of the other Red Hat clones probably would run on it as well.
Well, definitely, but I think even Ubuntu or Arch or any of them, and anything,
Gentoo
for the most part.
So this might be interested to run on even a Fedora machine or something else, right? Because I doubt there's anything in the script that is particularly Alma Linux specific. I wonder if there is something like that out there that's just we're going to check and see if all the things work the way you expect them to.
Is this open source?
It is. The hardware certification suite is out there. It's on GitHub. Yeah. Be interesting to try.
I would say, I bet the biggest hiccup I would see is just if it's looking for a specific file or something and it's in a different location. Just some basic.
Yeah, there could be some of the tests.
Easy to get around stuff, but
like it might check for /etc/Alma release or whatever, and if that's not there, oh no. So who knows? But it's a fascinating idea, and I don't know. I'm not aware of anything else like that, but I think that's a really interesting, like this idea of run this script and it goes through and it checks and it makes sure that your system is doing all the things it's supposed to. You've got network, you've got USB. Like that's kind of an interesting idea.
So this is just a script. So you already have to have Linux.
Yes. Now it may have. Well, so
Couldn't you
it's
run this from a live USB.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm saying somebody should just make an ISO, a live boot ISO with this on it and have it just be your checker before you go and install. I mean, you can put it on distros too. But.
So
that's not very exciting.
Issue number 19, just so you know, is created by Benny Vasquez, which Benny is the leader of Alma Linux. And it is create a live USB image for certification. So there you go. All kinds of fun stuff.
It, Rob.
Yeah. Benny yourself.
Well, I'm just as smart as Benny because I just heard about this a few minutes ago on art. Okay, maybe I'm not.
That's not necessarily how that works.
That's how that works. I'm
not necessarily.
I wouldn't throw that gauntlet down, Rob.
Come on, Benny, bring it on. Come on, let's go. Let's head to head.
Well,
I'd pay to see that.
Lost. Maybe you can get Vinny as the guest.
I've had Vinny as the guest. It's been several months ago now, but we had her on and had a fun time. It was good conversation. All right, Jeff, we're probably going to get a 6.11 kernel this weekend, and that means that it's about time for 6.12 stuff to really start. And
yes, it is.
You've got some news about that,
and stuff that's even started before that. That's going to wind up in 6.12.
Yep.
So, we've talked about this in the past, but Intel is making a change so they can get past the Family 6 series of CPUs. Intel has been using the Family 6 designation for a long time. Like since the mid-90s. Now, while that seems okay, it can cause issues. There is specific code for different generations of CPUs, so we can get the most out of them. Well, currently, Intel has to look at the model ID to decide which code they need to run, basically defining what the chip can do. And if you think back to the mid-90s CPUs, in a current model, there's big differences, in just like cache and the old single core to multi-core. And now we've got, with performance and efficiency cores mixed in. And not to mention just the variations in a series, because different core count, maybe some don't have efficiency cores. They only have efficiency cores. There's a lot going on here. So in the past, it caused some issues and they had to go back in and always tweak the way it would look at the model to decide how the CPU was going to be defined by the features and capabilities. And I'm bringing this topic up again because, like I said, we talked about it probably about 6 months ago, because the 6.12 with the 6.12 kernel, they should have their new solution in there. So the new method is VFM, which stands for Vendor Family and Model. Now, this is something that's going to be transparent to the end user, so we're not going to notice a difference, but it will make support for future CPUs easier for the maintainers. The Family 6 designation isn't going away, though, not just yet. The next CPU and up to the Clearwater Forest CPUs, which have the Darkmont cores, will carry the Family 6 designation. So it's the next couple series are coming out with still Family 6. Now, I should mention this isn't something that happens on the AMD side. AMD has been adjusting their family ID regularly, such as Zen and Zen 2 being Family 23, Zen 3 and Zen 4 being Family 25, and now Zen 5 is Family 26. So only on the Intel side has this been an issue. Now, this started with kernel 6.9, and it's taken 74 patches to get things ready, so it's taken some time to get all things lined up without breaking anything. They don't want to cause issues with existing stuff, so you kind of have to work it in there carefully. A little speculation that this might be in preparation for the x86S series of CPUs. The S is for simplifying the CPU. They're going to simplify the chip by removing support for 16-bit and 32-bit operating systems. So x86 is a big step forward with dropping legacy mode, 5-level paging improvements, and other modernization improvements for the x86-64. There's also Intel Fred, which is flexible return and event delivery, which changes how transitions are done between privilege levels, the CPU rings. So there's already been some work in the kernel for these hardware changes, and because it would be such a huge change, they want better CPU identification. I'm talking about the x86S and the Fred. They've been sprinkling stuff in for a couple kernels now. Future CPUs are possibly going to be going a lot of different directions, so they want to really make sure they can properly identify everything. Now, little caveat here, I do want to state that what I'm saying, with the technologies here is not insider information. This is not anything I got from work. This was all gathered through public places. So no insider stuff there. So just in case anybody's curious or wondering. So we'll 612, we should see the new model vendor. Not that we'll see it, but
let's look at the code.
So this means that Intel has been shipping 686 processors for 30 years now.
Yeah.
Well, that's literally what Family 6 is. It's the P6. It's 686.
Yep.
And think about it though, like the tail that your processor family is going to have. So Intel is not going to want to ship one of these out until like this kernel lands in the latest Red Hat release. Just thinking about it, because so many Linux installs are going to be Red Hat or Red Hat derivative, and so you don't want to break that. You don't want to, you don't want to limit yourself. Yeah, we'd like to use your newest processor, but we're still stuck on kernel 6 dot whatever. So it's going to be a little bit still before they're willing to do that, I'm sure, and break all the things.
Right, and we don't have an exact timeline for x86S or Fred, but we know it's coming sometime in the future.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Now with 86S, that is still going to retain, I think, because we talked about this before, that's still going to retain the ability to run 32-bit code, just not a 32-bit OS.
Right. It's not going to have the like the legacy stuff and the special hardware modes where you kind of kick into that lower mode. It's going to be it can handle 32-bit, but not at the metal level. So it's not you're not going to be able to get deep in like an OS would, but like Steam, it should be able to run Steam where it's just a 32-bit program.
And that kind of implies that they can then remove all of their 16-bit handling altogether. So I think Linux is like Windows in that you cannot run 16-bit code in 64-bit OS. And
we actually talked, I think, a couple of weeks ago about I'd read some articles about people theorizing, how these newer chips, the RISC chips, and some of these are more efficient because they're not carrying all that extra old legacy baggage behind, and that x86 could be a lot more efficient if they really dumped a lot of this old stuff, and so they could focus just on the 60 by 64 instructions. And this is possibly one way they can do it, not to mention the simplification. And I know a lot of security issues they worry about through a bunch of that old code, that stuff was a little more hacked together back then.
Yeah. All right.
Well, speaking of old code, is it my turn to go?
It's Rob's turn.
So Debian and Ubuntu users all know the importance of apt. And like most other software in the world, it relies on other components and libraries. And unfortunately, some of those components that apt relies on are old, long since abandoned. And well, that isn't good. So although Ubuntu and Debian, they've been patching it on their own over and over throughout the years, so that still works for them. Their design, or the design of these components, translations, features are stuck in the past, causing small issues for the distro maintainers, paper cuts, as some might say. But, Linux Mint is no stranger to forking and maintaining old code, as they've forked GNOME 3 and been running Cinnamon for years. So they have decided to fork and maintain some other old code, and that would be the old apt components that aren't maintained anymore. Some of these are GW and apt URL, which were merged into a single utility called Captain and apt daemon. Or they were merged into Captain. And then you also have apt daemon and mint common apt daemon. These were merged into a library called apt kit. All the tools which previously used apt daemon, semantic, or apt URL will now use apt kit and Captain. So, I often like to give Mint a hard time for being old, outdated, but sometimes there is a use for that old, outdated code. And maybe this fork will actually do the community some good, and maybe updating some of this old code maybe I'll speed up app so it's a little faster, a little more modern, keep things going, keep things secure and patched. So as much as I love to poke fun at Mint, I guess they're doing some good things for the overall community after all.
Kind of surprised this is Mint doing this. No. I'm thinking, never mind. I'm not surprised it's Mint doing this. I shouldn't be surprised that it's Mint doing this, because Mint is based on either Debian or Ubuntu.
Yep. You thought there.
I said Mint, and I was thinking of OpenSUSE. It would be surprising if it was OpenSUSE doing this.
The default Mint is based on Ubuntu, but they do have a Debian version also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And at one time they had a KDE version. They used to have quite a few. I don't know.
Yeah, and they realized that was just Ubuntu, so someone else already covered that niche.
Yeah.
Now, here's my question. For those of us that use the app front end Nala, what impact will that have? Will it have on using that?
Well, that's only you, so we don't know. But
I tried.
Nala is just a front end app, so if there were ever any security vulnerabilities in those upstream packages, they would affect Nala, I guess, just the same as anyone else.
Yeah, I tried Nala for a bit, and it always wanted to clean out my old stuff. And sometimes when you load a program, you
disappeared.
Yeah. But bump. Okay, but. Sometimes, because that's something you got to be careful of when you clear out some of these, you'll say, oh, it's not required anymore. Sometimes you may have installed a program that had some of these old libraries or other programs in there that are an older version that is required, and you clean those out and it'll suddenly break certain programs. And so I'm always a little leery of cleaning out the old stuff, depending on what the machine is.
Yeah.
I just like the default works just fine for me, so I've never bothered getting another wrapper. If Nala became the default, I'd maybe start to use it. If it had to become the default in like all Debian based distros. I don't want to
Well, if you remember, it was the default for Rhino Linux.
Yeah, that's another thing only you are using.
I'm gonna, since it's just the four of us here, I'm gonna confess something. I'm gonna be vulnerable here. Lately, I just click on the little Discover icon when it shows up, and I let Discover update everything. I haven't even been doing it by the command line.
Whatever distro I'm in, that thing pops up in GNOME, KDE, wherever I'm at. It pops up and says, you have updates. I could just click that. I don't. I go and open my terminal or hit F12 if I have Yaquake or something. And then I do sudo apt because I want to see all those things.
When I update for updating the stuff from the repo, my Flatpaks, my snaps, my Rust items that are installed.
Snaps, another thing only you're running.
I beg to differ, right, Jeff?
Yeah, he's wrong on that one.
But
the reason is, go ahead, Ken.
I just go ahead to, and like Rob said, go to the terminal, but I just type top grade.
Yeah, a lot of aliasing in there. But see, that's the reason I click to discover anymore, is because it will do the snaps and the flat packs and everything, because apt won't update everything. You'll update through apt and you look and there's like still things in there. So it saves me from having to go in and use a command line to update the snaps and
does it
flat
do your
packs.
firmware updates?
Oh, it does everything. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
So I just say update. It just handles it all. But I had to do a little research. Like, why aren't these matching? And it's because apt is not pulling in some of these other packages because they're the containerized packages.
I haven't run a Debian Ubuntu based GUI on my desktop for a while. So the only place I have been running like Ubuntu usually, actually in production, I guess, is on server. So it's only command line there anyway. So I don't remember.
Yep.
I'm
That's
really
why
doing
Ken and I make
zipper.
fun of you.
So I really like the last note of the release notes here, and it's all in all, this is a lot of work, and you as a user won't really see much difference on your desktop. The paper cuts are gone though, and if you find new ones, this time we'll be able to fix them. It's like we fixed all the bugs, but there's probably more there, but we'll fix them. I like it. All right, Ken, let's talk about a new Steam client. What's up there?
Well, I'm actually going to be covering two stories that are on Valve. First, as you mentioned, we heard from Marius Nestor about Valve recently releasing a new stable Steam client update that brings numerous improvements and some new functionality to further enhance your gaming experience on Steam and bring compatibility for more Linux desktops. The new Steam Client update makes the Steam Families feature available for all users as a replacement for the Steam Family Sharing and Steam Family View, providing users with new and existing family-related features. If you have large game libraries, it improves startup and library performance. It also improves the reliability of the games in common collections in your Steam library, improves detection of the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, which I'm hoping will take care of mine once I get the update, and revamps the shortcut key binding and settings user interface with the ability to unbind a hotkey. The Screenshots Manager has been redesigned to make it easier to share screenshots directly from Steam by copying them to the clipboard, sending them to a friend or chat group via Steam Chat, sending them to your phone via the Steam mobile app, or exporting screenshots as a new file on your computer. You can now share multiple screenshots at once by multi-selecting from the grid view, as well as searching within the app filter downdrop. The new Steam Client update also improves the overall performance and reliability of the Screenshots Manager and lays the ground for future support for recordings. For Linux users, the new Steam Client update improves the system display scale detection to make it compatible with more Linux desktops, fixes a crash in the GL driver query component that occurred when using the latest NVIDIA graphics drivers, and fixes another crash that could occur when exiting the Steam client. Marius' article includes a link to the full release notes if you want more detail about the numerous bug fixes. Now, we also hear from Lee and Daw about Steam turning 21 this year. Yes, Valve launched its Steam client on September 12, 2003. To celebrate this birthday, Valve has a 64 gigabit and 512 gigabyte Steam Deck LCD models on sale. These models are being phased out. So you will be able to get 15% off the 64 gigabyte Steam Deck LCD and 25% off the 512 gigabyte Steam Deck LCD. This sale runs through September 26th, if supplies last that long.
Yeah, interesting.
Jeff, you ready to get a Steam Deck?
No. I'm kind of a snob at that. I want high resolution screen. I want,
Well, you can hook
monster
it up to
machine.
a resolution screen. I guess you won't get the monster machine, but
Yeah, I'm
the,
running a pretty
dock.
good beefy machine for the games.
Just get the Steam Deck dock for the hooking up to that high resolution screen for only $75 more.
I would recommend not getting those lower, smaller storage ones. I think I got the 512 or I don't remember, but maybe it was something even lower than that. It wasn't enough. I wish I would have got more.
It might have
Suppose
been
I
the
can upgrade it.
256.
Yes, I think it was the 256. Now that I think about it.
Well,
Can I
here's a
upgrade
chance
those?
to upgrade to the 512 LCD for about the same price as the 256, if not less.
Oh yeah, I think those are like very fixable, moddable. You could take them apart, and I think and swap out parts pretty easily. I believe that's what I think I've heard. I've never opened mine up yet.
If it's surface mount, you might be able to send it to me and I can fix it for you.
Jeff, are you actually a Surface Mount pro? Is that actually in your wheelhouse?
No, I am not, but I have people that work for me.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I was going to say,
I-
I was about to be surprised by a hidden talent of Jeff's.
I have a Surface Pro,
the
but
hidden
not a
talent
Surface
is
Mount
he can
Pro.
touch people who have that talent.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
has a Surface Mount Pro.
Yeah, I've got a lot of very smart and talented people that work for me that make
And
me
make
look
you
very
look good.
That I can believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
like
since they
solder under
work for you, you could
microscopes.
just you gotta slide them over something and be like, hey, just gotta take care of this for me.
Well, the nice thing is iFixit still got that repair kit out, which can make any of us look good at maintaining the Steam Decks.
Oh, I love those. I got the big one. It's awesome.
I like the iFixit kit, but that is not magical enough to give you the ability to do surface mount soldering. That is an art form in and of itself. I've tried to do it, and it is extremely difficult. There are ways, like there are expensive tooling that if you have it all, it's much easier. But
Yeah, like a reballer.
It's not an iFixit
Now,
though.
I'm real good at doing
No.
surface mount installing of discrete components.
Can you solder under a microscope, Ken?
Like I said, discrete components.
Yeah.
I mean,
But he-
surface mount, you can get some real small, discrete surface mount components that are a pain to put on. I'm really good at through hole. I could do through hole all day.
Yeah, I can do through hole. Yeah, but we've got people that they literally solder under microscopes.
It's impressive. I know there are easier ways to do that. Like if you have the mask, like the solder paste mask, to where you smear the paste on there, you pull the mask up, you drop the chip in place, and then you heat it up, and you're good. But anything more than that, it's like that's an art form. All right. Do we want to talk about AMD and a attack vector control?
We do, and I was just kind of looking at the stories, and I didn't really put it together. That I'm doing a lot of security this week.
Yeah,
Security now.
I'm taking Jonathan's
that's all right.
focus.
That's all right.
Lots of love here on this show. David Kaplan, who's a senior fellow at AMD, centers his work around security technologies, and he's published an initial set of patches which are attack vector controls. Now, this sounds like there's going to be a lot of new security features that we're going to see in the AMD CPUs. That's not the case, though. The patches are just like they sound. They are ways to better control the security features that are already found in the hardware. Basically, they make things much simpler so the level of security needed can be easily adjusted. To sort of quote David, and I'm going to edit a little to leave out some long file paths and make things a little easier sounding. This RFC reconstructs and proposes new command line option to make it easier to control which CPU mitigations are applied. These options select relevant mitigations based on chosen attack vectors, which are hopefully easier for users to understand. The rest of the patches define new attack vector command line options to make it easier to select appropriate mitigations based on the usage of the system. While many users may not be intimately familiar with the details of these CPU vulnerabilities, they are likely better able to understand the intended usage of their system. As a result, unneeded mitigations may be disabled, allowing users to recoup more performance. New documentation is included with the recommendations on what to consider when choosing which attack vectors to enable or disable. So kind of to restate what David said and simplify it, you can select a use case and it will apply the probable security that you need. If I have it on my home game machine, I don't need near the security that the same CPU in a professional server setting, which might be handling sensitive data such as credit card information or personal information, would need. I should say these are in the RFC, or the request for comments phase, and it will also be discussed at next week's LPC, or Linux Plumbers Conference. Take a look at the article in the show notes for a link to the patch series, which is being talked about. And there's also there's also a charge that is showing different security change, which is showing different security measures based on what the CPU is doing. New vulnerabilities and security measures would also be able to be added and controlled by the command line. So as things progress, they can easily add more things and keep the menu system up to date. Take a look at the article and in the show notes, and you can dig in as deep as you so desire to learn more about this RFC. Details are in the documentation there.
I really like this because not every user needs every mitigation. Some of these just you cannot pull off on anything other than, say, a malicious virtual machine. Or you've got to have something malicious running on the machine, which at that point, who cares? You've already got malware. I think this makes a lot of sense.
And it helps if you've got a cloud-based VM that you just want to shut everything down on.
Yeah, like if you've got untrusted virtual machines, that's a totally different scenario
versus a personal gaming machine.
Exactly.
Right.
That's not even connected to the internet.
Well, I'm not sure you can do much gaming these days without the internet access, but
yeah, but you're not a target,
right?
Other than like script kiddies or someone wanting to screw around, the big professional services are not going after your machine to find out. Oh, Ken's playing Minecraft. We're going to go after him and hack his account. It's like they're going after the big money. The
really hardcore advertisers. Who hire hackers to find out what games you're playing might.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, this is cool. Yeah. I'm curious to see what the response is to it.
And there's some charts in there too, kind of showing some examples, but it's still mostly in the early talking stage. So it's nothing's set in stone yet, but I like it too, because it's going to be a lot easier for people to actually say, hey, I really need this, or I'm not running multiple virtual machines where someone could hack into one to get into the other to leak stuff.
There's the big question. Would you need to reboot to toggle them on or off, or could you toggle them at runtime?
Some of them you would probably have to reboot, I would assume. I would really think some of them are so deep in the system you'd have to reboot to be able to change it.
I think it's going to depend what exactly you're changing as to whether you have to reboot or not.
Yeah,
and some of those it's probably going to just sit at once and not worry about it ever again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
depending on your circumstances.
In fact, I would think that would be the default. Most people are not going to be changing their vulnerability mitigation stance.
Yeah,
this week I'm gaming.
Tomorrow this week I'm gaming. Tomorrow I'm just going to hook to the enterprise cloud server with credit card information, and
whenever you hook up to the internet, you have a script that turns up the security and connects to the internet. And
well, that's
whenever you hit your dial-up.
Yeah.
So NAT security is not enough.
Oh my goodness. That kind of hurts. All right. Rob, apparently there's a job opening. You going to apply?
I
mean, you've got those 3 degrees you could put to work.
Yeah. I'm a little missing out on the nonprofit requirements. If they can look past that, I'm good. This sounds pretty slick. So
Rob Campbell for BDFL for Gnome. I'd buy it. I'd buy it and I'd vote for you.
Is that a part-time job?
Thanks for the support. No, it's full-time. Well, they do have unlimited PTO or unlimited sick days, I mean, so I guess you can be part-time. Anyway, are you looking for a job in the open source community, but maybe you don't actually have the skills? The GNOME Foundation announced this week they have opened their search for a new executive director to lead the GNOME project moving forward. In this job role, you would play a critical role in shaping the strategic direction of the foundation and work closely with staff, community members, and partners to extend our reach and impact. The ideal candidate will have professional experience working with nonprofits, which, I guess I've worked with some nonprofits a little bit. I've fixed their computers and it's installed some, software for them. So I guess maybe I do. Also a strong passion for open source. And you know what? That's why I'm here. A deep commitment to to their community values. And I use GNOME. And the vision to drive the next phase of GNOME's growth and development. At the beginning, I didn't think I fit, but you know what? I think I might fit exactly what they need. But I'm not going to hog it to myself. If this job is something you think you can handle and you're interested, here are the benefits that you can expect. Salary, in US dollars, $120,000 to $150,000 annually. Obviously, 30 days of PTO, that's paid time off, vacation days, or whatever, if you're not familiar with that lingo. Also, including federal holidays, so you get all the federal holidays off too. And there's unlimited sick days, so if you're sick, you're sick. There's also comprehensive healthcare coverage for U.S. applicants because the rest of the world doesn't have to worry about that, along with a 401k retirement plan. Also, I believe that is a U.S. thing, they said. So a pretty decent package. I mean, I know it's not the $500,000, multi-million that you're getting at like Firefox, but I mean, it's GNOME and it I don't know, sounds pretty good to me. The job posting, it is open until September 20th. So act now because you got 6 more days as we're recording this. If you're interested, should be pretty easy to do. I mean, especially considering if anyone paid attention to the last short-lived executive director they had, I think anyone can do it.
I'm just curious about, are the unemployed on unlimited 6 days?
I don't think they're paid sick days.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet they're
not
non-paid.
That would be unpaid time off.
Yeah. So
PTO.
Yeah. I am hopeful that the next person that comes to lead GNOME is willing to clean house there, because I really feel like that's what needs to happen. I'm curious, is the existing bureaucracy going to pick the next leader, or is the community going to vote?
Oh, they didn't say anything about that. It's
my vote's for the community.
They have a board, don't they? That's probably who will hire them.
Yeah. That's probably doesn't
problem.
bode well. That's probably the problem. I think it could
So,
be
like,
much more interesting
if you
if the
applied
community
Rob,
voted.
if you applied Rob and said, all right, I'm going to come in and clean house and do all that, and they're going to go, yeah, I'd like my job where it is. We're just not.
I'm going to leave the board alone.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I don't think the executive director has much say over the board anyway. So
Usually not. Usually it's the other way around. Yeah.
And from looking at the job description, he's basically just a front man.
I mean, that's all any executive director is. President, CEO, executive director. They're just a pretty face for the company.
Well, they should be setting a good one should be setting
direction
and large initiatives that they then hand to their subordinates to work on the details. And
I think a lot of picking of high position people falls to the executive too. Picks the VPs and some of that stuff.
Yeah, and then the VPs pick the directors or managers, and they pick the supervisors, and then the people at the bottom of the chain as
actually do the work.
Yeah. And the person at the top doesn't know what they're doing. They just hope that each person down the chain is following the vision.
Yeah. See, I would argue though that you could really, as long as you only had a basic understanding, you don't have to know all the details, because that's where if you can pick smart people that you can trust, because, one of the leadership things is if you have a team, and you should be the dumbest person in the room. You should have smarter people than you working for you, so that you can trust what they're saying. And
that's really kind of my point. I mean, you don't need to know how to program. You don't need to necessarily know how to code the desktop, or
you know what, Rob? Maybe you are the most qualified candidate for this position.
Well done, Ken. I was thinking that and trying to figure out how to put it. You got him. Bravo.
All right, I got 3 votes here at least.
Yeah. All right,
let's voting for you.
3 KDE users to vote for me. What's that mean?
All right, Ken, let's talk about some Rust. Have we talked about Redux? Have we talked about Redux OS on the show?
Oh, we have.
We've touched on it. And since we have touched on this Rust-based OS in the last few episodes, I thought it only fitting to talk about Redux this week, especially since Michael Laravel wrote about their latest release. I am talking about Redux OS 0.9. Release 0.9 is a big update, with it being quite a while since their prior release. Redux OS 0.9 integrates various apps from the Cosmic desktop environment being developed by System 76. It also has massive performance and stability improvements compared to prior versions. There is also improved process, thread cycle, lifecycle, and signaling, cleanups across its code base, and huge improvements to Linux and BSD program portability. Some key improvements include faster system calls and context switching, improved virtual and physical memory management, and improved file system performance. Redux OS 0.9 now supports the Unix path format, replacing the previous URI format used, improving compatibility with POSIX Linux libraries and programs. It also has ports of the first HTTP web server and the GNU Nano and Helix editors. It is recommended to try Redux OS in a virtual machine before trying it on real hardware. Redux OS 0.9 supports Intel and AMD's 64-bit and 32-bit CPUs. It even supports ARM 64-bit with limitations. Now, ACPI and PCI interfaces are supported. No USB hardware interface is currently supported yet, though it does support USB keyboards, mouse, and touchpad for input. You have VGA, GOP, and LLVM pipe video support. For sound, it supports the Intel and Realtek chipsets, and of course, the PC speaker. Now, IDE, SATA, and NVMe storage are supported, and you have support for the Intel Gigabit, Intel 10 Gigabit, and Realtek Ethernet chipsets. Wi-Fi support is expected soon. Redux does have integration with QEMU and VirtualBox. Now, Michael's article includes a link to redux-os.org, where you can find more about Redux OS 0.9 and learn how to run Redux images in a virtual machine, which is what I would recommend. Don't use it on your production machine.
How many years did it take for Linux to finally land good support for pretty much all of the Wi-Fi cards out there?
Oh. I don't know. How many years has Linux
33
been?
years?
Yeah, it took a long time.
Can we say we're there?
We're pretty much there, because now when companies put out new Wi-Fi cards, they go and they port it to Linux. Like, it's pretty much just part of the process now.
We are there with current generation. I think where it fails still is a lot of people try to use Linux to bring life back to old computers, and that's when
some of those aren't supported. Yeah.
Now, where Redux has the advantage is it can just try to rewrite some of the drivers that Linux is using for Redux.
Yeah, and like you could even see them doing something like making a wrapper for wireless drivers. Boy, there's an interesting idea. Why didn't nobody think of? Indus wrapper is a thing. It's a painful thing that I've tried to use before. Anyway,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to have reminded you of the pain of yesteryear trying to make hardware work on Linux. Oh my goodness. So kudos to them for trying. It's one of the fun things about Redux is, with the whole Rust in the kernel thing, there's been a few people that say, well, if you really want Rust in a kernel, why don't you go write your own? And there's at least one developer on Twitter that is like, we are writing our own. It's called Redux.
The way I see
we're here.
Yeah.
If you're getting tired of the
Shenanigans.
politics in the Linux kernel, then try Redux.
Yeah, and so I guess that's the big question. So that's a valid point, and that's kind of what the dude on Twitter was saying. The question to ask yourself, though, is where is the problem? Where is the politics coming from in the kernel? Is it coming from the old school kernel guys, or is it coming from the Rust developers? And if it's the Rust devs that are the problem, then going to Redux is not going to help with that. Not to throw shade on either group, but that is what comes to mind.
I think it's a generational problem.
It might be to some extent. I think there's also just always going to be friction when you do something that big and that new in something that's been around for a long time. Like friction between groups is just, it's part of life. It's part of working on stuff. They'll work it out. Oh,
just like
what?
you get friction between family members.
Yeah, that's true. You hope you work it out. What about friction with permissions in things like Ubuntu 24.10?
We're trying to get rid of it. So Ubuntu is bringing some security control to 24.10 in the way of permissions prompting. The information comes from an Ubuntu Discourse article, which is linked in the show notes. And this is actually part 5 in the 24.10 development cycle, the document. So there's more reading for those who want to learn more about what's coming and some thoughts behind why. So back to our article that again is linked. The permission prompting is to better understand what a program is doing, but also to control it. I'm sure there's a lot of us who have smartphones, and when we've added an application, the OS would then prompt and say, this app needs access to your contacts and your camera and microphone. We would then say yes to those depending on what kind of app and what we're doing with it. You know, the app to change your background color probably doesn't need your contacts permission, while the message a meme a day application, it would make sense to have it. Now, I just made those apps up, so any app that does that is strictly coincidental. But the way the control works is in the article, they give an example in the form of a snap and its permission. You know, it's Ubuntu. We got to talk about snaps. So when creating a snap, there's a set of interfaces, and an interface is the connection that an app needs to talk to other apps or parts of the file system for the information it needs, or even the network, however you're connected to the outside world. Then 2, when a snap is installed, an AppArmor profile is generated and it specifies the interfaces it needs. in the App Armor profile. When the snap requests access to a particular piece of information or communicate with another program, it then checks the App Armor profile to see if it has permission to access the interface. Previously, if App Armor profile said it doesn't have permission, it would just be denied. Now it can prompt and let the user decide if they will allow access or not. In the article in the show notes, they show images of how granular the permission can be. In their example, Firefox is asking for write access to the downloads directory for a specific file. Now that you can run this in two modes in this example. So in the simplified version, you can give access to everything in the downloads folder, everything in a subfolder that's, inside the downloads folder, or even just specific file along with read access. In the power version, there are custom path names that can be set. You can, again, set only the specific file or even file type, such as allow only access to .png files in that directory. And you can set the duration from once to always, whatever you feel that is needed. So take a look at the article in the show notes, as it is a long article with images of the current and new permission flow charts, along with deeper detail on what's going on, and including what is still to come as the feature isn't finished yet, and they're looking for feedback on how things are working, both good and bad, and suggestions for improvements. So just kind of a side note, I'm kind of really looking forward to 24.10, as it looks to be a large step forward for the Ubuntu family. So as soon as I can try it, I will load it up and I will give feedback on what I think about 24.10. But lots of good stuff coming.
It's almost time for that. It is September already, and that is coming up soon. Before you know it,
I need to load up the daily build and give it a shot.
Mm-hmm. I think this ability to have permission, more in-depth permissions, is one of the most interesting things about Snap. And I don't think you can do it with app images, but I think you can do it with the other containers.
Flatpak.
Yeah, Flatpak. I think it's one of the most interesting things about it is to be able to have those fine-grained permissions. So I like the fact that Ubuntu is kind of leaning into that and trying to make it work even more with better controls.
It's very good. And to me, the biggest analogy is, like I said, your phone. When it says, hey, it wants to do this. And sometimes you're like, sure. And you're going, other times, no, you can't have my contacts or what,
This flashlight app really does not need to be able to see all of your files.
Exactly.
I'm pretty much saying, no, you can't see my contacts all the time.
Yeah.
Or to access your Wi-Fi.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And just a general note, when you find an application that asks for one of those really weird and unexplained permissions, just uninstall it. Go find something else. But no, seriously, if you find a flashlight app that wants to be able to look at your files, look at your pictures, uninstall it and go look for something else.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, any of those things that just don't make any sense for what it's trying to do. Go find a different app.
May not be malicious. It could just be not a very good developer who doesn't know how to properly request their permissions.
Well,
yeah,
or it's how you have to, because
template that requests everything. Why not use it?
No, long time ago there was I had a flashlight app before flashlights were common in built-in phones, and it had to have camera access, and it even described it had to have camera access to be able to control the LED to give the light. So sometimes that stuff can be bundled together. But like in this app, and I did a whole bunch of research and verified that it wasn't malicious. But it's just kind of like, well, we need access to this one piece, but I have to ask for access in this whole subsection.
Yeah, you see something similar with Bluetooth access is location on Android. To be able to access Bluetooth, that is also location. And it's the weirdest thing until you realize that Google considers the ability to map out the other Bluetooth devices that in effect gives you somebody's location. And Google makes use of that. So there are some of those that there are surprising but good explanations. But then there's some of them that just there is no good explanation for this. And there are malicious apps. There are malicious apps even right now on the Google Play Store. Because there's basically 1 billion apps, and it is not possible for Google to actually check all of them.
Well, there is a good reason. It's malicious and it's trying to rip you off.
Well, that's not it's not good, but it's a reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a good reason with a bad outcome.
I suppose.
Or maybe I should say valid reason.
There you go. All right, let's get into some command line tips. We're going to let Rob go first with hard info.
Hard info, yes. That is that's describing my workout routine. No. So that is not a command line. It is a GUI app. So hard info is available on the repos, and it is just a simple little app to display a whole bunch of info about your system. So sudo apt install hard info is all you got to do if you're on like Debian, Ubuntu. And here is one of the test machines that I have it on for demonstration purposes here. This is, as you can see, it's the Ubuntu 23.10. I should update that, but it is just a test VM. You know, it's the CPU, it says the RAM. So the graphics, storage, printer, audio. If I go into summary, I mean, it kind of says all that too. Operating system, kernel mode, boots, has the boot dates, languages, info on the file systems. And hey, look at all these stupid snap loop file systems in here. This is why I hate Snap.
This is what makes Rob crazy.
If Snaps did not have this stupid thing right here, I would be all in. Fix that one stupid thing. Okay, anyway. Sorry for that. Let's go on. Displays information, environmental variables, development users, groups. I miss groups. Groups is devices. You know, you can processor information, memories, PC, devices, USB. Let's skip down. It has a whole bunch of stuff about hardware, battery, printers, network stuff. There's a little benchmarks section here, so you can hit the CPU blowfish, and it's going to give you some numbers there. There's a CPU crypto hash, Fibonacci, nqueens, zlib, different CPU. There's a FPU. There's a GPU drawing. Did that earlier, and this is a VM with nothing. It gave me like the lowest score ever after drawing a whole bunch of things on the screen. But I guess I can get that started here. But that is just a quick little app if you want on your system to easily get a really good graphical view of all your hardware.
Very cool. I'm not sure if I was aware of hard info or not, but I like it. All right, up next we've got Ken with Find Mount Part 2. Ken is muted.
Yes, we do. And as going to start off part 2 with demonstrating what we'd previously done, which was use find mount with the -n -source label equals tumbleweed, and then giving you the target and the source as the output, which is just simply that. Now, you can also use find mount to put in the device itself, which is what I'm doing here. And that's going to be the same thing for the that tumbleweed storage device I've got hooked up. And now we're going to go back to our My Passport and use it. Let me go ahead and hook it back up. And it should be, once it's mounted, on SDB1. And it is. But here's the problem. If I unmount it, and in between putting it back on, I put another USB drive in. Well, there's the other drive, and there's my passport, and I mount that. If I do a search for SBD, it doesn't find it because SBD1 is not mounted. There's a way around that. And what I've got is where I take and encapsulate the find FS command with the label equals my passport and use that to identify the source for find mount, which works fine. Now, one other thing that you can do with find mount is -P, and it's just going to sit there until the status of a device changes. Yes, it is. And now if I unmount my passport, it gives that. Since I don't have any files that I'm using on Tumbleweed, I can unmount that, and you'll see that. So you've got that. And in the show notes, I've also got a little script. And if you're finished watching, just Control-C, and it'll go back out. And in the show notes, I've got a little script that I wrote up, that I just called test here, where you can put the label you're looking for, and it comes back with either that,
or if it's actually plugged in, something different.
or correct. And just waiting for the device to be found. And now I'll mount it.
Yeah.
And there we go.
Cool.
And you notice what device it is now.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer SDB1, it's SDC1.
Yep. Cool. Super useful. All right. Jeff, what do you have for us?
I have Planify, which is kind of like it sounds. It's an open source tool that will help you plan. Now, in the show notes, it's Planify Task Manager. This is not your operating system task manager. It's basically a to-do list application. Mm-hmm. So it can be set to give you pop-up reminders. You can add sections to a project and even break things into higher and lower priority subsections of that project. It's just kind of a note-taking device and reminder device. So there's a bunch of preferences, and you can customize on how it looks, and it can interface with CalDAV, C-A-L-D-A-V, which is an extension of WebDAV, and that provides a standard for clients to access calendar information on a remote server. For example, Google provides a CalDAV interface you can use to view and manage calendars using CalDAV protocol. So, which means you can either host this program yourself or you can use it with other services. So, if you need something to organize yourself, this might be the tool for you. It's available as a snap or in the FlatHub store, so pretty much any distro should have access. Take a look at the article linked in the show notes for several pictures of how the interface looks, and you can better decide if this is something you need. If you need a little organization in your life and some reminders of tasks you have to do.
I assume this is more for personal task management and not quite project manager level.
No, not project manager. It's you can say, plan Thanksgiving supper, and you can go, okay, I got to make sure I get the turkey. I got to make sure I make the dessert, make sure Aunt Becky brings her famous, mashed potatoes, and so it's more for that level of project. It's not.
I do use some of my own. I have used various ones for my own personal list, just so I don't forget to do things. But I should see if there's a good project management one out there. I'd be interested in that also.
Yeah, I could see that.
Microsoft Project.
Yeah, I said a good project management one. Microsoft Project's fine, but open source is really what I mean.
Yeah, open source is really nice.
Yeah,
I'm sure there is.
And for anybody that hasn't used Project, it looks kind of like Excel. It acts nothing like it, and is also one of those. It's kind of like Vim, very, very powerful once you get over the learning curve of how to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. All right, I've got a command line tip, and it's audit D and audit CTL. Something I think not many of us have messed around with, but it's actually really pretty powerful. On like Fedora and Red Hat systems, it seems to be installed and running by default. It's available on Ubuntu and derivatives, and you have to install the audit D package there and get it started. But basically what this does is it is real-time auditing rules where you can say, anytime this thing happens, I want you to write it to the audit log. And so just a couple of examples here. So audit CTL-L will list the rules that you have. I think you have to run all this with sudo. -L will list the rules that are there. On my machine, when I first did this, I had a never comma task rule at the top, and that needed to get removed before I could do much of anything else. So audit CTL-D clears the list. And then you could do things like audit CTL-W and give it a file. So in this case, it was /etc/ssh/sshd_config, and then a -PWRX, which says, I want to know when someone writes, accesses, reads, or executes, and then -K for sshd config. And what this will do is anytime that file is touched on the computer, you get several actually line messages going to the audit CTL, the audit daemon. And you can do things like system calls. You can get all of those. You set your system calls. So you could say, anytime the time change system call is used, I want it audited. And so like this could actually be really, really useful for running down bugs as well as like security auditing. It's really, again, it's not something that I've ever really used before, but it looks to me like it is a super powerful tool. And definitely when you're in a particularly niche, well, I could see on one hand, set this up on a server and be able to go back and check, has anybody messed with my SSH keys, just for instance, or has anybody read the shadow password file while I've been away? But also, if you've got a bug and you're trying to figure out, like, okay, why is this happening? Is this system call being made by anything? You set up an audit rule, and then you can go, oh, this application is what makes this system call every 30 minutes. And so super useful there.
Cool.
Yeah. Are you guys familiar? Have you used the audit D and audit CTL? It, like the auditing stuff is built right into the kernel, apparently. I didn't know it existed.
And it does require running it as sudo only, apparently.
Yes, all of your interactions with this has to be as root or sudo. Yeah, in fact, if you try to run it without, it just says, please run this command with sudo.
Well, in my case, it said you must be root to run this program.
Yeah. Basically.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing. All right. Well, fun. It's been a good show. I will let each of the guys get their plugs in, or if they want to get the ending word on something, we'll let Rob go first. I bet Rob's going to beg for some coffee.
Yes. So, like every week, I'm thirsty because I'm all out. It's empty. So, for those who want to help fill my palate, you can go to my website. That way, robertpcampbell.com. Right there. And from there, you can find this link right here. See, it looks like a coffee cup. That is where you click on. And there you click donate and just select a whole bunch of coffees and just finish filling it out. But if you've already given me coffees, you can still give me more. But I'd also enjoy just connecting with you on the social medias. And professionally, I got the LinkedIn's, so you can connect with me there, see all my professional ramblings. I got the Twitters. I don't do a whole lot there, but it's there if you want. And I have the Mastodon. That's the other place I am more active. I'm probably fairly equal on Mastodon and LinkedIn, and depending on the topic, I guess. So come there, connect with me, donate a coffee, and hey, we could connect up on a LinkedIn video, and I could drink that coffee and we could chat.
There you go.
Wait, does LinkedIn have video? I don't know.
I don't
Maybe
know.
It doesn't.
I believe it does.
All right, Ken.
Well, I just want to give you a teaser for next week. Everybody's probably used Mount at one time or another to mount devices. I'm going to show another tool besides Mount that can be used to mount devices.
Ooh, fun. All right, and Jeff.
Not much on social media. I do have a Twitter, or I guess X now. I have a Instagram. I am on LinkedIn, but I'm not very active. So in light of that, I'm just going to leave with a little poem. Won't you please observe a brief moment of silence for the dead server? Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Touching. All right. And as far as my stuff goes, of course, I'm going to plug Hackaday. You can find the security column there. You can also find Floss Weekly there. This past week, we talked with Andreas Kling about Ladybird. We called it Champagning the Ladybird browser, because Aaron told me, he goes, no, you shouldn't call it dog fooding where a company uses their own software. They're not eating their own dog food. They're drinking their own champagne. So that is what we called that episode, just for fun. But you can find Floss there. It records on Tuesdays, and we make the post live on Hackaday on Wednesdays. The security column goes live on Friday. And so, check those out. Appreciate the guys being here. Thank you for your time and coming along with us. And we appreciate everybody being here, those that watch us live and on the download. And we will see you next week on the Untitled Linux Show. Hey folks, do you need more TWiT in your life? Do you really wish you could be part of the conversation on Discord? Well, you need to be part of Club TWiT. It's not much more than the price of a cup of coffee per month. You get access to the Discord, ad-free shows, and more. Come check out Club TWiT.